Hello and welcome to the Agri-Food Pioneers. We're here to give a voice to companies in the agriculture and food industry, making a real difference to the environment. And today I'm joined by Jamie Feilden, founder and CEO of an expanding charity that transforms the lives of vulnerable children through farming, family, and therapy. Welcome, Jamie, and thanks for joining us.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to be asked along.
Yeah, no, we've wanted you along from the very beginning. It's I know about your farm and charity because you're not too far from me here, and it was inevitable that our paths were to cross. So, for those that don't know about Jamie's farm, can you tell us just a little bit of an overview and tell us a bit about your position there?
Sure. So we're a charity that my mother and I actually, it's an interesting choice to found a charity with your mother, but I founded the charity with my mother about 15 years ago. And we started, as you say, just down the road from you in this valley, bringing children from London who we felt could do with a real boost and a new experience away from the city, largely focused on changing their behavior, but also using agriculture as the vehicle. So the first ever group came in 2006 from a school I was actually teaching in, and they stayed in our family home for a week, and we saw profound changes there. And therefore, we launched the charity fully 2008. And it's grown from there. No grand plan, but organically we seem to now find ourselves with 6 farms across the country, working with vulnerable people, vulnerable young people, bringing them out of the cities to live and work with us alongside us on working farms for a week at a time.
That is amazing. Where are the other farms, first of all?
Yeah, so we've got the one here in Wiltshire. We've got a farm in Herefordshire, on the edge of the Black Mountains. That was our second farm. Our third farm was in Monmouthshire, so just inside Wales. And then the fourth farm was in Lewes in East Sussex. Around the same time, we set up an urban farm in Waterloo in London, which is still going. And we're in the process of establishing, bringing livestock in and out of the city is an interesting
I can imagine.
And then we are establishing one up in Skipton in Yorkshire at the same time as well.
I love it. That is absolutely amazing. Right, so many questions, but we've only got half an hour. So first of all, how do you locate the children that are vulnerable, that need this kind of treatment, therapy, help?
Sure. So about 80% of our clients are schools, and an individual, usually secondary school, but sometimes primary, will select a group of children who are struggling to engage with school, basically, and aren't thriving. And as my mum puts it, they're children that you can change the tracks for. So there's a real opportunity to change their direction through a really intense experience that gives them hopefully a boost and an ability to reflect. So those are the bulk of our kids. Around 20% of our kids come to us through social services. So they would be children who are in care, or families who are at risk of being split up by social services. So kids who are really struggling. And what I love about that kind of work is that we almost become like their home in the country. So we've had children who visited 6 summers in a row. They've come every summer back to our farms. And it's become a really sort of important part of their family makeup, if you like.
Absolutely. That's amazing. So is there a charity or an organization that's locating these children on your behalf?
No, so we deal directly with those institutions, the schools, social services, and they pay us for the service. But the fees that we charge only cover roughly a third to a half of the real costs. So we have to generate funds in other ways to support our activities and keep going.
Right. Okay. So raising money through what means?
So half of our total money is fundraised. So that's often through trusts and foundations, fundraising events, etc.
Yeah.
And then the other half is earned. Of that, about 70% is from the schools or the institutions we work with, and the rest comes from farming, so livestock sales. We would sell between the farms about 400 grand's worth of cattle, sheep, and pigs every year. And then we also have an Airbnb business. So on a Friday, as soon as the kids leave, we let the properties. In fact, because we're near Bath, it's always hen do's here. But
I bet it is. Yeah.
So the kids leave and the hens arrive, and then we generate about 200 grand a year from that activity as well. So
Wow.
we're trying hard to earn money, but we also rely heavily on continuing to fundraise.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a combination of funds that are coming from different areas. And what was the other? Oh yeah, how are you managing to expand so quickly? And obviously, it's very difficult to get into farming and to buy land at the moment. But you seem to be expanding quickly, which is great for vulnerable young people across the country, I'm sure. But how are you managing to finance it?
So the first three farms we owned on a combination of fundraising and debt. Then the Lewis farm and the Skipton farm are on leases from generous supporters. So
Great.
we weren't actually buying that farmland. If interest rates were a lot lower, it would be easier to
I bet.
buy farms, but that's a challenge. So we're very lucky in that because we've been around for a long time and we have a lot of generous supporters. When we have the opportunity to develop a building or do some exciting new project, we talk to our generous supporters and they often help finance these things. But I think the other thing is that we're quite rare in the level of earned income. So a lot of charities rely entirely on grants, but as I say, just over half our money is earned. So that money can also be used to help us expand and reach more children. In the last year, we worked with 2,100 children, and we're really proud that we're getting up to those numbers. But we feel that there's a whole group who we haven't yet supported, who we'd love to be helping, basically.
That is fantastic. I'm just blown away. I can't believe that. First of all, that someone based in the countryside can think to find these, because I used to live in London. I've got a clear idea of what it's like, and one of the reasons I moved out here was because I didn't want to bring my children up in that environment. To be brutally honest, and the fact that you're out here and you're helping children in the city is I think really fantastic. But it is a working, profitable farms as well. And can you tell us a bit about your approach to farming?
Sure. So when we set up the charity, we were really determined that it would never be a petting zoo, that they'd be proper working farms. I'd grown up involved with farms. I didn't grow up on a farm, but I grew up working on lots of farms around here and connected with lots of different farmers. So when we started farming, we farmed in the way that everyone else around us did, if I'm honest. It involved a reasonable amount of inputs, quite a lot of bought-in feed, some sprays, some fertilizer, and we kept sort of scratching our head and going, God, we sold more livestock than ever this year, but we didn't make any more profit. And it was just kind of, it should have dawned earlier that basically the inputs were what was killing it. So a few years ago, we looked at this and we started to plant some herbal leys, and we started to learn more about regenerative practices, learn more about looking after your soil better, and also the wildlife benefits and the health benefits to the animals, and then the humans who eat that food. So we've had a really kind of exciting 3 years of changing our approach. Farm here in Bath would have 500 ewes producing 800 lambs a year. There'd be 100 pedigree Aberdeen Angus cattle. We sell beef and we sell bulls to the local market, pedigree Aberdeen Angus bulls.
Mm.
And we also have a few pigs, but we find pigs more difficult because they rely on bought-in food. So we're trying to reduce our pig numbers. But to me, the kind of whole finding out, it's almost like getting religion. So this regen stuff is it brings you into this really exciting, hopeful network of people. And a couple of colleagues and I did a tour of some regenerative farms in the north recently, and at the end of it, we reflected. We said, "God, there wasn't a moaning farmer in sight," and it was just so exciting to sort of be around hopeful people,
Yeah,
who were thinking about not only the environment, the animals, but also the kind of human role in the whole process. And I feel like there is a sort of a movement of really kind of optimistic people in farming right now who are practicing in that way.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, like it's in line with every farmer I've ever met's belief. I mean, they all believe that the land is so important, and they live off the land, and the land is what they pass on. And this feeling that regenerative farming is all about looking after that land. So why would that not be in line with their vision and goals? And it's just the financial pressure, I guess, forced them into intensive agriculture and inputs. And but hopefully now we can see past all that. And once they work out what regenerative farming actually is, because people seem to have differing opinions on that. But anyway, I'd love to dig into that a bit more, but we don't have time, I'm afraid. I'm sure you're very, very busy. So can we talk a little bit more about the young people and what activities you do with them? You mentioned it's not a petting zoo. What is it?
So they're real working farms, and for anyone who's been to a real working farm, it's a place with an energy and a momentum that never stops. So, before the children have their breakfast, they're out there feeding the animals. They then come in for a hearty cooked breakfast together. And they then have a meeting where they get the opportunity to celebrate and challenge each other. And then they head off into activities for the morning, which could be anything from chopping logs to working with our horses, working in the organic vegetable garden, cooking. But kind of top of the list and most popular really with the kids is farming. So hands-on real jobs with sheep are particularly good, but equally moving cattle between fields, feeding the cattle in the mornings. So every morning they go and feed our bunch of Aberdeen Angus bulls. And one of the reason people like to buy our bulls is because they know they've certainly been well socialized. They've seen a lot of people in their life. But one of my favorite activities, actually, and I hope you get to see it when driving around the lanes here one day, is moving sheep along the roads. So our biggest ever was 300 ewes over 3.5 miles. We walked them with a bunch of 12 amazing children from Chelsea Academy in London, and it was just brilliant. They were so focused on this task and the idea that we had to get the 300 ewes home safely, including crossing the A4, which was a little bit hairy, and there were some interesting looks from drivers. But but we do a lot of that kind of thing, sort of just big sheep moves, cattle moves, but really making sure that these animals are well cared for.
That is awesome. I'd have loved to have filmed that.
Next time I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. Okay, so you're on the Agri-Food Pioneers. We've spoken a bit about regenerative farming, which puts you very firmly on our channel just for that alone. But I'd like to talk a little bit about how educating these young people, how that might be good for the environment, educating them about agriculture. And also, I wanted to know, like, do you ever get any bad attitude from these kids? How do you deal with that? Like I mean, like you say, they're from troubled backgrounds themselves, aren't they?
Yeah. So I guess the first part of the question is around educating them about farming. So,
Mm.
there is, it's kind of the stereotypes of how little knowledge um, there is amongst urban populations about farming are kind of almost underplayed, even. We've had, they don't know, a lot of the children who arrive don't know the difference between a sheep, a cow, and a pig. They don't know where milk comes from, etc., etc. So you're starting from a slightly scary level often. But the one thing I'd say is that kids are much more malleable than adults. And so within 2 hours of being on the farm, you can see the kids' confidence has, accelerated, their interest, enthusiasm, their questioning, all of that's going on. We've had a child arrive, and within 20 minutes of getting to the farm, she's delivering a lamb, literally delivering a
Wow.
lamb. And so it's properly immersive and in at the deep end. But rather than kind of lecturing them about food, where it comes from, livestock production, we very much just let them ask questions as we go along. And so, but I think they go away with a real sort of connection and understanding, which can probably only happen from a whole week of staying and living and working alongside us. Um, in terms of the behaviour, I mean, I suppose, yeah, we work with kids who have some pretty extreme behaviour back at home, and are often in all sorts of trouble, whether that's gangs, knives, drugs, a lot of scary things. But what we find when they come to the farm is they get a huge warm welcome, and they immediately feel part of a family, and that means that they often behave in a very different way to how they would back in a school where they're sort of against the system. So they're often very sort of different in our environment. The other thing is they're absolutely knackered because they're working all day. They, and then they go for a 3 to 6 mile walk, and then they come and have a big dinner, and then they go to bed and they sleep. The other thing is they have no mobile phones, so they sign a contract and they give us their mobile phones for a week, and they have limited sugar. So the things that would lead to kind of conflict and problems, particularly probably sugar, mobile phones, etc., aren't there. And they're exhausted and satisfied. So, and busy as well, because I think a lot of the behaviour comes from boredom. And that is one of the big comments at the end of the week is, well, there are two interesting comments. One is it's like going back in time. So the farmhouse here in Box is 14th century. It's an incredible old building, and I feel very proud of the fact it's being shared with young people in that way. And the other comment is I haven't been bored, and I think that really makes a difference. If kids aren't bored, they don't misbehave.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that story. So we're saying that if you expose these children to a rural environment, keep them busy, take away their phones. Do you not give them the phones for the whole week?
Not at all. Never. No, that's a fundamental that we don't bend on.
Really? Not
Yeah.
even to check in with home or anything.
No.
I love it. I love it. I bet that must make a huge difference. And then just letting them know that there's life outside inner city struggles. I guess it must be powerful in itself. Okay, well, that I think that gives us a really good overview, Jamie. Unless there's anything else you want to mention, I do have the final question, which is a bit of a tradition of the channel, which is that we ask our guests how our audience can help you on your journey. So this is your opportunity to speak to anyone who subscribes to the channel. So might be local, probably won't be. It'll be UK based though. So what do you need help with? How can we help you?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is spreading the word about our work. I hope it's quite a hopeful message of how the countryside can link with urban populations. I think never underestimating the value of these environments. So I think, spreading the word about our work. I mean, financially, it's a really tough time, and so we are a charity who rely on donations. And if anyone is excited or interested, please get in touch. We massively appreciate the support and require it to go forward and help more kids. I hope that we can sort of be just an important bridge, really. And we want to kind of work with others to be more of a bridge between urban and rural populations, because I feel like a lot of damage has been done to that relationship over the last 50 years, let's say. And I feel like kind of all of us post-COVID need to live in a more collaborative, optimistic world. So, if anyone can help that, then I think it's really important work.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. How can people donate, Jamie? What's the
via our website? We've got a new website, which it's far easier to donate via. So that's
good. And what's the URL?
It's jamiesfarm.org.uk.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
All right. So subscribe now and click the bell so you're notified when we speak to more pioneers of the agri-food industry that are leading the way to a sustainable, low carbon and regenerative future. Thanks for watching.
Are you an agri-food pioneer? Get in touch now to arrange your interview.